welcome everybody to our current energies forecast and discussion for December 2019. My name is Jona Bryndis, and together we're going to be exploring what the year end brings in, and also what this December energy, what it predicts for the whole next year. As always, I'd like to start this forecast with reviewing. So reviewing is a very important discipline, mostly because it creates a feedback with ourselves, or feedback loop, as I always call it, meaning that you, as the wiser you today, as compared to from a month ago, looking back at what happened here in the course of November, have a different perspective on things. And this is for those of you who are interested in consciousness work, and is a very, very interesting and illuminating learning tool to work with your own awareness this way, to compare your awareness. That's why I also recommend to take notes during this discussion and then go back to them. Maybe towards the end of December, when you start thinking about New Year's resolutions or something like that, look at your notes and compare your perspectives that you had at here, the 24th of November, with how the world looks like for you by the end of December. This is a very, very cool self-awareness training. And this coming month here, it will be so dramatic in its shift of perspective that it will deliver to us, that it might actually be hard to remember the way we saw the world before all these transformation momenti, how they are starting to take shape. All right, so for this whole year we've been talking about transformation and the increase in awareness and collective awakening and so forth. And we will talk a little bit about what this actually means, because going into 2020, which appears to be a very pivotal year, a year where maybe the history books will have a lot of entries. All right, what this year 2019 actually brought in for all these things to happen in the future, and what it actually means to us as a species. So the larger perspective is still on the menu here. And it's quite interesting when you look back. What were some of the things that you noticed that really came forward for you in this last month, and how things translated, maybe how they translated in a completely different way than you thought just a month ago, or maybe those surprising elements, maybe those emotional intensities that I mentioned, the whole self-growth aspect, but also the appreciation of life. How did this work out for you guys? How does walking the talk, how is that translating into your life currently? As for myself, I can clearly say that many things that I've been sort of schlepping around with me all year came to a point where I no longer felt this back and forth in me, where I felt really clear about what needs to be done. There are some things that I still haven't done, but then there are quite a few things. So in November, actually, a lot of things that I could clear up for myself, where I was previously maybe unhappy or frustrated. I could just literally let go of this inner conflict and just accept some of the limitations that I have, or that some of the environment that I'm in brings in, and some of the things I could simply just shake loose, just let go. So for me, November was a month where a lot of relief came in through just simply letting go of the conflict that I had within. It wasn't very emotional for me, and maybe it wasn't that emotional for you either, because many of us are working on sort of the higher expression of our emotions. But I want to point out that from an energetic point of view, emotional doesn't always mean that you are raging and lashing out, venting, and so forth. Emotional can also mean that you simply connect more with your emotions, feel more into your emotions, and recognize that there's a lot more in there, than your mind sometimes wants to admit, and what these things actually mean to you. So for me, November was a month of reviewing some of my emotional processes that I had gone through over the last 10, 15 years. It's very interesting. And it led to a lot of clarity in me. You begin to be kinder to yourself. This is what really changed my life. When I stopped judging other people so much, it had an effect on myself, and that was that I could finally stop judging myself that much. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think for
Yeah.
me it has mainly been being kind towards myself. And just not going into a downward spiral with it.
What you just said means that you recognize that you're going in a downward spiral, all right? And that means that you actually have a choice, even if it's just a few seconds.
Yeah.
But the more aware we become of this mechanism in us, right? That, like, say, whatever can trigger this downward spiral in us. This is slightly different for each and every one of us, but many of us have issues with performance and adequacy. Let's just, as an example, say, you feel inadequate or you feel frustrated because something that you thought you could do or expected yourself to do, you can't, or not as good as others, or whatever, and to seek those challenges as practice for just that. It's not
Mhm.
about becoming the world's best, it's not about that. It's about like really learning how to face challenges and how not to go into this downward spiral with it, and how to, in the end, discern whether this is even something that is important to us. Because sometimes, a lot of times, we get really riled up on things that are not even important to us on this sort of fundamental level, like what really
Yeah.
matters. You know,
Mhm.
these things that I can let go today are all things that don't actually really matter to me. And if it does matter to me, I want to apply even more kindness, because there, what truly, truly matters to me is kindness. So when I find myself being frustrated or lashing out or not kind, then I try to correct myself. I don't expect other people to live according to my values, but those are my values. I want to live that way. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful that you could have this like firsthand experience. Because see, you can read about this 100 million times, and you can have this intent, right? And then it's in these little situations in life where it clicks all of a sudden, because you're practicing it, you're implementing it, and there is something that you thought you had this all panned out, and as you're doing it, you recognize what it truly takes, not in order to perform, but in order to not get caught in your own inner conflicts. So that's why uh, experimenting, trying new things. I'm assuming that you've tried this as an expression of, like, sort of exploring, trying new things, challenging yourself. So that's a really cool insight. You don't
Yeah.
have to, you don't even have to like Zumba, to
No,
to
not
to, to
really.
appreciate to appreciate that lesson, that learning experience. You know,
Yeah.
that's a cool part. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Actually, isn't very cool. A lot of people here are sharing. A lot of you guys have a increased sense of clarity and felt some kind of closure in November, which is cool. Some of you also report about this new beginning kind of energy. This, it felt like paving the way, like creating a new foundation, creating a new ground for the new things to come, even if you don't 100% know yet what this entails. Deep healing for some of you. Future clarity. Future clarity, what do you mean with this? Like future is more clear to, or you can tell now why you're being pulled into certain things, or what the purpose of this learning experience is. Is that what you mean, future clarity?
Yeah, very, very clear. Things are coming at me so fast that I have to actually slow myself down to really try to decode and understand them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just getting a lot of really clear future path guidance. So it's pretty exciting.
All right. Okay. Just a quick note here: when this happens to you guys, this will continue in December. Um, there is a pace to this sometimes where we can get frustrated because it's so much at once. It's just, it comes in as hologram. It comes in form of holographic information, and our brain is too slow. It doesn't have the bandwidth. It doesn't have the computing power to quote unquote figure this all out. All right. When this ever happens to you or you, Cindy, it's like so much, and you feel like you need to write it all down, or you feel like you have to catch up with it. My suggestion or recommendation to all of you is, like Cindy said, slow down, but don't try to capture it all. It's already part of you. Okay. You don't need to worry. This isn't a mental process. This isn't like school, where if you missed it, it's over. It's not like that. This is all part of you already. It wants to come to an expression, and that's why it comes to your awareness. But trust me, this journey, and this isn't even as mystical as it sounds, is so clear. When you are tuned in, when you connect with yourself, through mindfulness, soulfulness techniques, we talk a lot about these things. Everything here as a part of the sacred self-healing learning. All right, then you will feel, know, think everything you need at this very moment to make the highest um, expression, or to bring this to the highest expression. You will have it all at your fingertips, or wherever you feel this in your body. All right, because it's already part of you. There's no need for you to be afraid that you would miss something. This is a really, really big insight here that we could learn from this whole entire year 2019. If it's not true, it will simply fall away. And if it is true, you can't lose it. Even if you don't remember it. If it goes into sort of more latent or subconscious knowingness, if it's true, it'll come forward the minute your energy is in that resonance with it, and you can trust in that. You can rely on that. Can you relate to this? To just stay cool, to just stay calm. This is already in you, okay? It's already stored in you. Just because your mind cannot remember it at this very moment doesn't mean that it's gone. So
Yeah, I like
remember,
the way you just described that. That was really, really
yeah,
good. Is don't worry about trying to catch it all. You can't.
yeah. And you feel inadequate, and you judge yourself, and speaking downward spiral, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the whole 9 yards. But the other thing is really the part here that makes this easy. And that is, if there are things that you forget or that simply poof away, guess what? They weren't true anyway. So allow everything to be in that space that you might not be able to pinpoint, or where your mind isn't able to process it. Sometimes this is actually the better way, because your mind also has a tendency to disfigure it and distort it. And it tries to hold on to it. It tries to take credits for it or whatever. All right. So this isn't a bad feeling. Start or learn to feel comfortable with this, where you can literally tell there's a lot coming in. It's like you feel like you have sort of one light bulb after the other going on. But if somebody asks you, well, what was it? You can't even say one thing. You don't even know how to name one thing
Exactly.
because it's
Exactly.
not a mental process. Not a mental process. It's cool, Amanda, that this resonates with you. It's very important. What's not true to you simply falls away. And if something is true to you, you cannot lose it. So you don't need to be afraid of anything. It will be there when you need it. But if you judge yourself for whatever reason, you lower your vibration, and then your energy is simply not compatible. Not it doesn't resonate high enough anymore to access it. So this is the problem with choices and with thoughts and concepts and intentions and resolutions, and also with beliefs. Okay, you got to be willing to let all these things that you feel so stressed out about holding on to, you got to be willing to let those go. And those that are important or that are, an integral part of you, they're not going to go away. But all the overlay, all the ballast, the stuff, the burdens that you carry around with you, just trying to catch up with your own mind, right? All that does is lower your vibration, and lowering your vibration means less choices, and less choices means shitty decisions in relation to your higher vibratory goals, your higher expression. Because whenever your choices are restricted, you cannot come to the highest expression. Right? Yes, you can very much relate to this. If something is not true, it falls away. Yeah. And for me, moving on from it and not hanging on to it is also continued learning. That's exactly true. We don't need to this hanging on to things or trying to capture it is nothing but our ego's attempt to take credits for it. And this is spiritual talk here, guys, but you trying to take credits for an insight that you had is about as unhumble as it comes. We'll talk about this here in December, okay? If this isn't quite clear what I mean with this, that's okay. There's a function that our ego has that wants to internalize all successes and externalize failures. All right, so it wants to take credits for all the cool thoughts and cool ideas it appears to bring forward, but it doesn't want to be responsible for anything when it doesn't go well. And this is a big part of our human dualism. So when we let go of trying to own our thoughts, most of which we don't even own anyway, because they didn't even come out of us, 75-80% of all thoughts and thinkingness that is going through us is actually nothing but a transmission from the collective mind. We don't have a hive mind per se, but we have a collective thinkingness field around the planet, all right, like the astral, okay, that we pick up, and that is, like a Wi-Fi that is constantly connected with our mind, and it comes in form of these random thoughts, random pictures, and relentless stream of thoughts. All right. So you got to know that 80% of those aren't even yours. That's a big task here for all of us self-healers to discern that. You're making a really good point. For you, things are shifting so fast that you were slowed down by a physical injury. And as priorities changed because you had to take care of your physical, yet, yes, your direction did too. And this is the big deal, guys, with diseases and with accidents. This is the purpose of accidents and of things that come to you as sort of sudden conditions. This can also be a sudden shift in outer conditions and so forth, but where you are forced. I talked about the cataclysms last month, okay, where you are suddenly forced to rethink everything because the condition has changed. And that then relieves you of all this overlay, because all of a sudden your priorities change and you have to focus. You're being forced into focusing on the things that matter. And many of you, if that go through a crisis, guys, this is a good learning for you. When you go through a crisis, something happens in you. Of course, on negative, on a lower expression side of things, you start coping more. You start, obviously, you have to deal with a lot, and there's trauma and so forth. Yes, but there's also something else that happens in you, and that is suddenly a shift in what you focus on. And many of you unconsciously begin to actually prioritize or focus on the things that are really, really important and that express more self-love or self-preservation in some of your guys' cases, if you had previously allowed those things such as boundaries to be violated, or if you didn't enact it. And what this means, and I want you to listen very carefully here, is that a lot of times we live our life accepting things that we shouldn't accept, and we know it. We know it. There is a part in us that is very clear about this, that this is actually not acceptable, but we keep going, maybe out of the fear to face it. A lot of different reasons why we don't change it, even though we kind of know what needs to be changed, until this drama escalates to a point where we are being forced to change it, where we're being forced to go into this catharsis, and when nothing else matters. And this is, I want you guys to really understand, this is a, sort of this nature of the truth. Truth is truth. And it doesn't matter how you twist or turn it. It doesn't matter how much you try to look away from it. It doesn't matter how your ego bargains, tries to, get away, avoid, hide, numb, whatever it is that you're trying to do, just so you don't have to look at it and act according to it. It will come forward. There is no way. You cannot stop that. All right. And so the longer you wait, the more dramatic and the more sort of escalating everything becomes, until there's the big drama. And the big drama then is where you're being forced to change. I call those things true self interventions. All right. Where your true self is literally sort of steering you into the accident or into the disease or into the relationship drama or the bankruptcy or the big blowout, all right, with your family or whatever, where now you have to do it. And the cool thing about self-mastery and self-healing is that you can avoid all that, because your knowing is that it's gonna have to come forward no matter what. We're gonna have to be real at some point in this 3D life, okay? Latest on our deathbed. Then it's all real, everything. We might as well face it as it arises, and while we still have a lot of choices and a lot of freedom to do so, instead of waiting till the big drama hits and we're forced to do it. So this is the bigger purpose of this consciousness work of self-mastery, of self-healing, mindfulness, and soulfulness. How many of us have been in relationships where we knew exactly that it's going to be a disaster, but we hung on to it because we still hope that there is going to be a change or whatever it was, codependency, co-addiction, fantasy bond, you name it. There's all these different psychological reasons why we continue to hang on. Trauma. But at the end of the day, right, it's going to fall apart. And we knew it all along. Do you guys know what I'm referring to? So many times we have this feeling clearly in front of us, and all our energy derives around not looking at it, not facing it. Okay, it's a lot of waste of energy to not face something, to not say something, to not do something. Only for it in the end, be it 10 years later, be it 20 years later, or, a week later, it doesn't matter. To fall apart like a house of cards anyway. Self-responsibility means that you address it as it arises. Sometimes you need to feel this out a bit. Sometimes you need to sleep over it, or meditate over it. That's fine. If you have the intent to actively deal with it, okay, then you can trust in your energy, to wait for the right moment. That's fine. But if you have to spend so much energy to not face it, to numb yourself from the pain, or to go into this continual stress and fear about it arising, or the shame that you feel by admitting it or whatever, that energy is what drives you into your lower expression. That is what drives you into your ego and into all this low vibe stuff. It's not the truth itself. That never changes. It's us resisting truth, us bargaining with it, us trying to take ownership of, us trying to control it, that creates all the stress and the pain in our life. And someone is asking here, can you define overlay? This question came when I talked about thinkingness and mental overlay. So there's different kinds of overlay, but it's really the mechanism itself, and that is that we create a whole entire sort of virtual reality around things, be it in a mental way, that we sort of have all these rationalizations and justifications and so forth that allow us to not, or to, whatever the intent is, all right, or emotional overlay. This is too painful, this is too fearful, this makes me feel too powerless, this makes me feel too inadequate. Oh, I'm afraid to embarrass myself, or to be ashamed. This creates overlay. It creates literally an energetic field around a certain subject matter. And that field then becomes your attachment. So when we do energetic clearings, what we are removing is not the subject matter. What we are removing, and counts probably for 3/4 of all energies that we clear within a person, is the overlay, is the attachment to the subject matter in whatever way. Sometimes it's an attachment, in form of holding on to something. Sometimes it's an attachment as in not wanting to see it, trying to bury it. And sometimes it's a combination, and sometimes it's literally blocked through, say, things that occurred, like prior, like a childhood trauma, for instance, can do this to us, that we are unable to process certain things. All right. So I'm not saying that you are responsible for all your attachments, but what I'm saying is that this overlay that exists in us in regards to certain subject matters, be it with ourselves or with others, okay, is what lowers your vibration, is what prevents you from growing and from making better decisions. Okay, so it's the clouds, the clouds that prevent you from seeing the light, the sun. When you see the sun, when you see the light, then it's easier for you to have this clarity. It's also easier for you to see the purpose. And as a result of that, it's also easier for you to make decisions that reflect, that are congruent with your intention. Overlay prevents you from doing that. So you see, this isn't necessarily a matter of understanding it with your mind, because your mind is only marginally involved in this. This is a matter of how you deal with yourself and how you deal with truth. And one of the big issues you guys have, those of you who have already awakened from this sort of sleeping beauty ignorance, all right, we cannot say anymore that we weren't aware. Okay, we still may not have solutions and so forth, but seeing truths, becoming true to yourself and becoming a true self, or say connecting with your true self, and then as a result of that, becoming better at being a true self, does not allow you to ignore truth anymore. You can't unsee truth. You can't unfeel truth. Do you guys know what I mean? It's there somewhere. And in order to reconcile this with yourself, with your ego self, you have to create a lot of overlay, a lot of filters. The best way probably to remember what an overlay is kind of like a filter in your perception. I sometimes also refer to it as distortions. Okay, it links into this virtual reality that we create internally, but that may sound a little harsh. It can be physical, can be emotional, can be mental. An energy field around a subject matter, all right, that does not allow us to really perceive whatever the subject matter is in truth. Okay. The moment we are willing to see truth, and this is of course a process, so we have to work our way to it requires a little bit of resilience in us, all right, to be willing to see truth at all times, all right. But the moment we are willing to do this, okay, you will notice that you have a lot less inner confliction. Why is this? Because you no longer need to resist. So the resistance, or better say the overlay, creates a lot of resistance in you. Unconsciously, you're not aware of this, but it creates these shit magnets that I always talk about. It's a charge in you, okay? That's why it's so easy to get triggered with these subject matters that we are attached to, okay? Because the ego immediately jumps up and tries to take over and tries to justify or degrade or rationalize. Or this is the one thing, guys, that on my journey really helped me, is to develop the discipline to catch myself when I rationalize. Let me ask you here in the audience, who of you has consciously caught yourself rationalizing things, like literally sort of trying to rationalize things away, like online, like you hear your mind and it does it on its own, right? Sort of immediately coming up with a judgment, immediately coming up with an explanation, immediately coming up with a good reason why not to or why to. Okay, I'm really glad you guys, almost all of you, raised your hands, because that's the truth. The ability to observe this though online, that's something that we have to develop. All right, that's self-awareness, and self-awareness comes through self-reflection. Okay, so we're not necessarily trained to do this. Okay, so if you had the luck to have very conscious parents who taught you the difference between doing and being, between behavior and identity, right? Who taught you that no matter what you do, you always going to be the same person, and that it is, your task to find out who that person is, who did not sort of imprint their idea of who you need to be onto you. There's only very few of us who had this luck to be raised by conscious parents, but many of you now are conscious parents or want to become conscious parents. And there, it's really important to get this, that, all this overlay is created by judgments, values, structures from the outside, all right, that we get conditioned by at a very early stage. And most of those, in the end, aren't actually even important to us. They don't even matter to us. It's all hardwires, it's all automatisms, it's robotic almost. So, as I mentioned many times before, this journey of self mastery and self healing is really a journey of self discovery and self exploration, with the willingness to understand it as a journey of letting go rather than a journey of performing or accumulating or owning and having. And it's so different from this collective overlay. So there's another form of overlay, and that comes through collective values and collective conditioning, that it's almost foreign to us. Without even thinking, we go into this immediate approach that has to do with performing, that has to do with doing. But see, the last time I checked, we are human beings and not human doings. All right, so this is really what this sacred self-healing context here brings in or back in for us. It reminds us on the things that truly matter for us, and therefore helps us to shed a lot of these overlays, a lot of these different layers of our ego. And last but not least, also the insight that most of it is either robotic or addictive. Okay, addictive in the sense that the ego receives some kind of payoff from doing it, and that the resistance and the pain that we experience is mostly rooted in, well, not wanting to give up the payoff. So if you catch yourself rationalizing, if you catch yourself justifying, if you catch yourself hanging on to something, and you're already sort of, something is fishy about this, all right, the only question you ever need to ask yourself is, what could my ego possibly get out of it? Well, what do I get out of it on this ego level? And that then will show you the way of what needs to be let go, what needs to be let go of, what needs to be detached from. Right? And for most of us, this letting go of and detaching is either in, belief patterns and structures that we have. It's in, maybe some values that we've taken on from others, and emotionally, the part here that has conditioned us in form of our pain and our fear, and when I say ego payoff, for the most part, the payoff is not needing to feel pain or not needing to feel fear. So there is no judgment in this. This is the part here that this is really just an agreement with yourself. Things aren't necessarily good or bad. It isn't about that. It is about you no longer feeling the need to judge it. That then brings in the freedom for you to actually evaluate. And with this, enhanced or improved self-evaluation, self-awareness, you can then make better decisions. So the forecast for December 2019 is called the uncertainty paradox. And those of you who've been in the energetic adjustment session, you already know what I mean with this. So what is going to happen here in December will bring forward an entirely new way of seeing things, and it will question our, this is a mathematical term, axiom of choice, how we make choices, how we make decisions in life. And these technical terms can be expressed in a simpler way, and that is the well-known chicken or egg problem. What was there first, the chicken or the egg? What was there first, the expression and the consequence of something, or the cause of something? And when you are in, versed in energetic awareness, more often than not, you will recognize that whatever appeared to be the consequence of a certain cause was actually the cause. And so we learn, after years and years of trying to figure this out, all right, and coming to the conclusion that you can't figure this one out because it's a paradox, that causation really is just an illusion of the ego. Okay, so trying to find the cause for something, the why, is not going to change a thing. It does help in some areas to understand things better and to unravel the mind, okay? But that's about it. It doesn't change the problem at hand. It doesn't change the subject matter. And therefore, spending your entire journey or your entire self-reflection on should've, could've, would've, or hindsight or anything like that is not effective. Going into review and self-reflection is effective. Because when you're reviewing, you're not judging. You're just going back and you're comparing yourself, your today self, with your past self. And this will be an extremely important foundation for what you will need, not only in December, so what is coming in here through these December energies, but what you will need all year next year. You need to have the ability to tune into your future self, because you will get tons and tons, massive downloads, but you won't be able to put your finger on it. You won't be able to tell what it means. You just feel one thing, and that is purpose. So you're going to be very clear on why you're doing things. So you no longer have to ask yourself why. The only question that matters from now on is how. How can I bring this into expression? How can I walk the talk? What does it take to live a life in truth? What does it take to live a high vibratory life, to have high vibratory goals? Self-expression. You'll have no clue what this entails. All you know is that you feel a calling into your own future. And those are concepts that I've introduced here to this community over the last 10 years. One of my favorite sort of metaphysical concepts is syntropy. How we are being pulled into our future, and not like the ego sees it, pushed forward from our ego. So our ego thinks in those binary and dualistic terms, and it thinks in a very linear, very restricted way, and that is, kind of like an x axis on a coordinate system. We think like our life is like sort of a line, and 1 minute after another, like a video editor, pretty much, with a time counter. But the truth is, guys, this is not how our life is. On this 3D level, it appears that way. But on these other levels of our existence that are not bound to 3D, the dimensional existence, like infinite, actually. So it's not just 45D. Okay, this is all a bunch of BS. Okay, because the dimensions are not linear. It's not like there's just one, new dimension that comes to it. It's exponential in a way. So there's many more dimensions, and part of these dimensions is also the dimension of time. So seeing the future is the same as seeing the past. It's just for our mind, there's a huge difference there, because we say, well, yeah, it's easy to look into the past because that has already happened, right? That's like there's a record of it, and therefore it's more real, right? And therefore, looking into the future requires you to be a clairvoyant or whatever. But that's not true, guys. And one of the ways you can prove this to yourself, besides, that maybe some of you already have this inkling because you can feel this sometimes, how present, past, and future all exist at the same time. But really, the only time that is ever real is the one right now, this minute. Okay, that's where the focus of your consciousness is in the now. And that is where you can change things. That is where you can actually create things. It's the only place where you can create things. And the way you can prove to yourself that evaluating your past is just as difficult as evaluating your future. When you talk to your siblings or your parents about something that happened in the past, guess what? You'll ask 3 people and they will all have a different version of what happened in the past. And yes, it's because of the subjective perception. But who says that just because, it's past, that it's more objective than the future? It's the exact same thing, guys. And this is where the paradox, the uncertainty paradox comes in. Obviously, the future hasn't unfolded yet. So there's a lot more options. There's a lot more timelines, a lot more trajectories. There's a field of all possibilities that exists. And you, as a self-master, you've been told right now here that you have the choice what you want to do with it, where you want to go. And my tip for you, this is the tip that I can give you here for December 2019 and 2020, is think backwards. Think backwards. Everything is backward. When your ego says, yeah, go for it, do the opposite. Always do the opposite. Don't believe your ego shit, okay? Because it's at least 80% of what your ego tells you that you see, that you perceive, is not even yours. Your chances are higher to by doing the opposite of what your ego suggests to you than by doing what your ego wants. Especially if you've already formulated higher vibratory goals that have to do with truth, that have to do with kindness, that have to do with insight and learning and wisdom. Now, if your goals are self-gain and exploitation and some of those lower vibratory some sort of 3D goals, fine, but then forget everything I just said, and best don't even come to these kind of forecasts. All right, because this is not for you. You have to stay on this attachment to the overlay, because this is on the level you want to function. But if you want to function and want to on this higher vibratory level that is in you, and you want to bring this into expression, you want to really become the embodiment of that, all right, then you have a higher chance of doing that if you learn how to bypass your ego, if you learn how to discipline yourself in the way that you explore and you courageously go out there and try new things, lose the fear of making mistakes, all right? And especially in regards to repetitions, okay? anything that is a repeat, guys, it's not mystical. All right, it's a very clear sign here that whatever it is that you've been doing to get there, produces certain results. That part, that still stays. That's that axiom, of that. Because if you keep doing the same things that you're doing, you're going to get similar results. All right. And this is why, knowing that 80% at least is not even yours or based on ego, your chances are higher to succeed if you go and challenge your ego in that way. Do quite the opposite. Go out of your comfort zone and leave your rigid belief structures, your belief system, okay, and start walking the talk. All right, that is what December is like. And uncertainty paradox, because because of the chicken and the egg problem, the vision of where this is going to lead or what this is going to do for you is going to be unclear for you at that moment. So at first it feels a little counterintuitive. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen around you, and be it with other people. I mean, we've been talking about this month after month after month. I feel like a broken record. But look back to the beginning of the year, guys. When I said most people are not going to be able to handle all the stuff that happened here collectively, and they're going to freak out and they're going to go nuts. If it hasn't become aware to you, it's becoming really crazy out there. All right, and most people still trying to hold it together with lots of alcohol, lots of smoking marijuana or meds or denial. But truth is going to come through anyway, so you might as well go with it. That's my overall tip, when it comes to how to deal with sort of all these collective shifts and changes in our societies. Okay, so this next month, and this will continue in 2020, guys, especially in January. So we're going to have somewhat of a mirror effect here, especially towards the middle of, well, the beginning, the middle of December, where there's going to be a preview of the events in January. So January is a very auspicious month. Those of you who are in astrology already know this. There's very, very unusual constellations for January. So a lot of people, a lot of, I don't know, astrologers, predictors, and so forth, so they're going to tell you that January is going to be huge, okay, for all of us. But we're going to get the preview here already by mid-December, okay? So if you want to peek into the future here, yeah, like in this syntropic kind of way, as I've explained it earlier, then pay attention, especially around the full moon times. December 12th, 13th are going to be some very intense days, and they will show you where this is going to go in January and the rest of 2020. So really be alert here this whole month. Overall, all the things like the new beginning energy that we had in November is now taking on more form. So this, you're going to be asked here to become an active participant in your life. Okay, this toxic passivity that we talked about for months and months and months has to stop now. So again, here you can resist it, okay, or you can wait till the drama happens. All right, but the energies are going to be forcing you into this more active living your life. Okay, and those of you who are in relationships or in job situations where you are still enabling or allowing or sort of silently suffering through non-integrous bullying, boundary violations, okay? There is no honor in suffering that. There's no honor in sacrifice. Guys, you will have to do something about this. You cannot allow other people to bully you, with whether it be the narcissists in your life or whatever other condition, ego condition is driving other people to do this. But you being silently complicit with it, in other words, you not saying, not doing anything about it, makes you part of it. It makes you take on part of that karma. Again, here, this is a paradox, right? Because you think, oh, they and them and they need to change and they. Yeah, but by you not doing anything and by you allowing this to be part of your life, well, now it's your problem too. Now it's part of your karma too. So you really got to understand that. Okay, this will require more discipline from you. Okay, and yes, inconvenience. Yes, inconvenience. December is going to get inconvenient. I wish for all of you guys that it gets very inconvenient for you, even though there's a lot of beautiful things that can unfold. I mean this in a sense of healing and self-healing. All right, the more inconvenient it gets and the more you actually discipline yourself to seek that which is uncomfortable at first, to seek that which your ego resists, okay, the easier it's going to get. This we have to learn. It's a huge, big learning curve here in December, and it's all about implementing. It's all about letting go of our self-sabotaging and rigid beliefs, guys, and learning how to express it, who we truly are, how to walk this talk, how to do it, what it takes to be real. And sometimes, for some of you guys, it also means to explore more, or try new things because you don't know yet. Many of us don't even know yet who we are. We may have an inkling, but we need to, somehow be able to have new reference feelings for this. So December will bring all that to you, and it will make it so clear to you. It'll be so healing and so wonderful, because you're going to see the purpose in all your experiences in the past. They will suddenly all make sense when you open yourself for this. And the biggest revelation will be in regards to other people, in regards to this expression aspect of yourself, all right, where you have to, it's one thing to sit there and meditate about things and sort of you and yourself, right? I mean, you and yourself, you know who you are, right? But it's another thing to go out there, and really be it, and to share it with others, not just in talking, also in doing. This all aspects of self-expression, and to really go into community with it, and to harmonize this with others. And yes, some relationships, some jobs, some places aren't compatible with you anymore. Well, then let it go. Why hang on to it? Why would you spend this enormous amount of energy to hold on to something that isn't even true to you? So the question, is this even true to me? Does this even matter to me? How do I truly feel? Those are all those kind of questions that need to become a discipline for you. I mean, eventually it's not really going to be a discipline anymore, because you recognize the importance of those questions. But this healing of the past, the reconciliation with the past, and also the undoing of your karma can only come through this level of self-awareness and willingness to walk the talk. And December is going to be a month that reminds you of this every single day. I've broken this down for you guys, just like how I break down the energy tips every week for the Patreon supporters and heart warriors. And I'm going to sort of illuminate here how this plays out on those different levels in a bit more organized way. And then I'm going to give you an overview over some important dates for December. energy centers involved here in December primarily. So we still have the first and sixth chakra aspect. That is something that's been weaving through October and November. It's this karmic resolution aspect. Yeah, it's beginning to see truth sort of really coming true, getting all these downloads, and recognizing how all this is linked, to be it our inner child stuff, our childhood trauma, our relationships, and so forth. You know, all that is now sort of is coming to a closure, is coming to a completion. We're done. You recognize it. You no longer need to ask why. That is done. You, for the most part here, I can speak for this community, pretty much know these things already. Not the details of it, but you got the gist of it. Okay. But that's still going to be active in December, because December is also a big relationship month. So these things are now, you know, they are now need to be implemented. Be it the attachment issues that we have, the codependency, co-narcissism, co-addiction issues that we have that come with all these boundary problems that I mentioned earlier, or be it the mentalization and the futurization that we do here, and the mental overlay that we have. All these things here have to do with letting go, accepting limitations, letting go, and sort of transmuting this into, you know, how can I be kinder to myself? How can I be more self-loving? So the alchemy of love, as I've contextualized this here in the tune-up session. All right, and there's very cool things that can happen through that, but energetically, it means that we're going to continue having issues with, you know, eyes, sinuses, ears, the headiness, and you know, issues with grounding, issues with our feet, issues with our hips, perhaps as well, and knees. All right, this is going to continue here for December, but there's other components, and I'll get to this when I break it down to the physical stuff. Then the new thing that is coming in here in December, new as in like a shift in comparison to October and November, is that our third and fourth chakra are going to get involved big time. First, the third chakra, the solar plexus. So the first half of the month, we're going to try to force our way through. We're going to try to, you know, go with our ego and go with what our ego suggests, and is going to create a lot of resistance. So the second half then will allow us to bring this into more harmony, into more balance with our heart, with our fourth chakra. All right, and that's where we begin to realize that this barrier that we all have collectively here between our third and fourth chakra, between our heart and our mind, that is the actual task for all of us. The harmonization, the heart mind that I always talk about, all right, where we allow ourselves to feel, you know, our through our energy, of all our energetic senses, you know, information to be there and to better discern it based on truth. But this requires us to have a good discipline for standing in truth and living truth. All right, and then the biggest aspect here coming in December full on is the expression part, you know, really going into self-expression through learning, through exploring, through, you know, challenging our comfort zone. This is the fifth chakra, this is the throat chakra. All right, is where things need to come to an expression, where we have to, you know, speak from the heart. We have to learn how to speak truth. All right, and this is the part here that brings in the connection with others, of course, you know, provided that we have the level of connection with ourselves that is needed to do this. And then ultimately, you know, this the ability really to learn other ways to interact with people that allow us to be connected to them and allow us to be connected to ourselves and truth at the same time. In other words, it will show us the way how to meet other people, how to be with other people that are, you know, aligned to truth just like we are. So for many of you, December is actually going to be a very, very cool month in regards to relationships. For those of you who are in relationships that maybe are not longer true, or where there are things that you're holding on to, it will be a huge test, a huge learning curve. But this doesn't always mean that they fall apart. It just means that it's like a reality test for your relationship. And if both come in with the same intention, and you can, express your values and your goals and your higher vibratory priorities and choices to your partner in a hard spoken way, it can lead to a whole new expression of your relationship. It can lead to a huge jump in conscious level of your relationship. Okay, so your whole entire relationship can grow through this. All right, so this is not all bad. All right, but we have to be aware that these things all need to come into harmony. Our first chakra, our childhood, our karmic stuff, with our third and fourth chakra. That is, the energy that we put into this. All right, to bring this into expression, it has to come from the heart. If it comes from our ego, it creates resistance. And then we need to find the right ways to express truth. And my suggestion to you, as you know, is speaking from the heart. Speaking from the heart is not the same as being emotional or emotionality, but it requires you to be in touch with your emotions. It requires you to form a vocabulary around your emotions that allows you to express them, to communicate them, so that your partner or your business partner, can better understand them. Remember, the less judgmental you are towards other people, the less judgmental you can be with yourself. And the less judgmental you are with yourself, right, the less judgmental and self-judgmental other people feel about you. That's how simple that is. This is the paradox again. We are so afraid that other people are judgmental about us. And yet we create this judgment about us by judging ourselves and them. So it's backward, guys. Everything's backward. Collectively, interesting months, of course, more revelations of truth. This has been going on now for a couple of years, and will continue, but especially around the end of December. Really, really big things. So this has to do with something I talked about in October, and also a little bit last month. The confrontation with untruth is part of how we learn to better align ourselves to truth. And so there'll be a lot of untruths, guys, shocking things coming forward. All right, so we really need to be willing to let go of these rigid beliefs that we have. They bind us through the material, the 3D, and literally don't allow us to see truth. If you want to connect with what is true, be it in social media, um, industry, finances, politics, and so forth, you really got to understand what is going on here. They have to move into more truth as well. They have to move into more integrity as well. In 10 years from now, guys, we're looking at a whole different way of business making. Sure, we have, all these old structures, they're not going to fall apart overnight. But things such as, being environmentally consciousness too, it's the effects that it has on people on whatever level and so forth, what we would call integrity or higher goals, they are going to produce a whole new level of companies, corporations, finance system, and so forth. Yes, we're still going to have ego, we're still going to have greed, we're still going to have all these things, but there's this massive shift. And if you're afraid every time, if you cringe every time, I or somebody else says, oh, we're in a massive transformation, nothing is going to be like it was before, well, maybe that can help you. That is what is going to change. Okay, it's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's what makes you cringe is the fear of needing of having to let go of the things that you're holding on to, your attachments. And that's then what ultimately creates the overlay. That's then what ultimately prevents you from being able to grow into this, to learn with it, and to embody these higher vibratory goals that you have just in your mind right now. But this needs to come to an expression. So there's a lot of stuff going down in December. Um, Needless to say, that it'll be challenging for all of us in that way. Interesting aspects in regards to the arts, the human arts. Okay, creativity is going to come forward more, and space exploration. Really big things now in regards to these space projects that are there, and sort of what we can discover maybe in our galaxy and so forth. All this is going to come forward here and change a few of our paradigms or aspects of our paradigm. All right. So everything changes in regards to this restricted linear way how we have been looking at things, and goes more into the direction of non-linear understanding of things, which this uncertainty paradox, or the alchemy, the axiom of choice, has to do with that. It's a non-linear concept. So physically, yes, we need to be more active. I already explained this earlier, and especially physically more active, more motion. This stiffness that some of you reported is going to be challenging in December. So my tip for you is allow new routines. This sort of this really strong, intense influx of truth is bone crushing in a literal sense, in that way that it crushes the existing structures. Now, for on a physical level, obviously, that is not literally meant literal, but it is, because within 12 months, all our cells, or 12 to 14, 18 months, depending who does the study, every single cell in our body is replaced, including our bone cells, including our teeth, including our spine, including all of our organs. Okay, so within 1 year, every single cell of you right now is going to be replaced by a newer cell. Okay, and this means that every attitude, every thought, every emotion, every action, every judgment, everything, every energy in you is going to determine how this new you is going to be. Maybe with this awareness now, you'll recognize that it wasn't the chicken that was there before the egg, but that the egg was there before the chicken. And that's a paradox. So, in other words, if you want to change, if you want things to change, you need to become the change. That's what that means. Okay. And in regards to physicality, you need to become the change. You need to add stretching, flexibility is a really, really important physical um, uh, ability that we need to deal with changes, okay, on all levels. All right. So try new things, try activities or exercise routines that work for you. I don't care what other people say, what is good for them. Find what is good for you, what you can integrate into your life. Maybe you only live, like, say, a mile and a half away from your job. Maybe you just want to walk to your work every day instead of taking your car or a bus. Maybe you want to, move somewhere where you can do these kind of things. Those kind of changes I'm talking about, integrating things into your life. Maybe you want to get a dog. I see a lot of you guys getting a dog because a dog forces you to go outside. And yes, it's uncomfortable for your ego at first, but down the road, that is something that helps you to walk the talk and, walk the walk. Right? Emotionally, December is going to be way less emotional than November. Um, but there still are issues with the betrayal and the stuff that the disappointments and so forth that has come to the light in November. So this is more of the healing of this now. Okay. And also how your own shadow aspects, how your own, even sometimes passivity has led to things. So this needs to be healed now. Okay. The bigger issue here in December is the mentalisms, mentioned as mentalizing and futurizing, justifying, rationalizing, all these cognitive functions and expectations. Okay, they make you rigid, they are part of your belief structure, and they are the ones that are holding you back for the most part, especially in the first half of December. Guys, my tip for you, question your beliefs. Who says so? Compared to what? All right. Talk to yourself. Go into the, this testing your own beliefs and your own rationalizations, because for the most part, those are part of your inner fragmentation. Those are, what we called the overlay earlier. Socially, in relationships, I already broke this down for you. It's a reality test for many of your relationships, but also on the job level. Speaking and living your truth will primarily be related to your boundaries in December. So becoming really aware of what is acceptable for you and what isn't, and what needs to be enforced, okay, is priority. I would strongly recommend all of you guys to make that a priority. Yes, I said I was going to do it, but I can't do it anymore because this doesn't fit anymore, or this doesn't work for me. Yes, I promised, I would do this or that, or yes, I said yes, but now I realize that this doesn't work for me. You do not have to rationalize, you do not have to explain or to share. You simply just have to enforce your boundaries. Okay, this is an empath problem, or problem from sort of spiritually oriented, mindful people, to be in this sort of passive attitude towards other people who constantly either degrade or violate your boundaries. Be super consequential, guys. And then all the betrayal aspect that was there, yeah, that was shocking, but you threw with the emotion of it. Now, translate this into maturity, translate this into learning, into wisdom, okay, and own your parts in it. That's what in the end allows you to let go and say, okay, yeah, I can see how, I've been tolerating this for 20 years, and all of a sudden I say, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore. I can't expect my partner to take this seriously, all right? So I might have to, be a bit more clear about this, okay, and also, show it, not just talk about it, show it. So being consequential often means communicating, demonstrating, and then following through on it. Yeah. So while the first month has to do with pushing through your own limitations, the second month is there for you to go into expression and really doing it. Spiritually, it's a very interesting, beautiful month in that way. We have the winter solstice. There's a great event here in transCODES that you all going to get invited to join. We're going to do a 3-day light fast over the solstice, accompanied with some transmissions, and then I'm going to invite a group of 15 people to do the 10-day challenge for the days the last 10 days of the year. This will be a super, super cool community event. It's going to be free, but this time you're going to have to apply for it. All right, because I can only take 15 people for this. And we're going to go through these layers of overlay of manifestation blocks here together. All right, and the transmission specials or focus here for the month of December is going to be our future self. So what we have been doing here with the trauma healing in the last 2 months, we're going to do this with the future self, where we go into this deep, deep reconciliation and absolution with ourselves. Very, very beautiful. I'm looking forward to this. This will allow us to really link into this deeper wisdom that comes through all this learning, and we'll understand something better that is coming in very, very intensely, but really hard to get a grip on, and that is divine order, divine justice. Okay, to recognize that you don't have to change people, you don't have to heal them, you don't have to show them truth or make them understand. There's something like divine justice, and it takes, sort of manifest in form of karma. But it's one thing to see this as a spiritual concept, and another thing to really feel this. And in conjunction with the other things that I mentioned earlier, how you take on the karma load of other people by meddling, by interfering, by trying to control them, all right, this will make more sense for you. It will show you the true purpose of all your struggles and all your suffering in the past. Right? Really lead to deep healing, a whole different kind of healing, not one where you have to sit and grind through it and process. No processing. You'll just get it. You'll just get it. And this will free up so much energy that you will understand when, me or somebody else talks about divine order, that this has nothing to do with law and order or judgment. This goes way beyond it. So you're going to have an increase in perspective, another increase in perspective of all these things. And energetically, overall, sort of on an integrative level, what does this mean? We need to really learn to discern better, which are my energies, which are not, what is the chicken, what is the egg, and then recognize all these insane programs and hardwires that we have and let go of them. And one thing that I see many of you guys do here for December is to really begin to follow through on your business plans. So many people want to do their own business. They want to move out of the dependencies, out of the lifestyle, of a 9 to 5 job, and also the, just being forced to work with people that you don't necessarily want to work with and so forth. Now in December is your opportunity, because you're going to have a lot of support there. So last month I talked about, we got to let go of the 3D-ness of things. And this month I'm talking about the translation into 3D, if that makes any sense. So those are two different things. 3D-ness, to be attached to the 3D-ness, to the material solidness of yourself, that's a limitation. But coming in with a higher goal and translating this into 3D, which is obviously a lower dimension compared to, this nonlinear, higher vibratory sort of realm where these goals are coming from. This means you have to translate it down, yes. But the fundamental parameters of that, they are not changing. So walking the talk, walking the walk means recognizing, what needs to be translated and how it needs to be translated. And this sometimes does come with accepting limitations, but that's no problem, because a higher vibratory goal doesn't care about limitations. All it cares is about how you can bring this into expression. It's all about fulfilling the promise to your higher self, to your soul, really, to bring yourself into the highest expression possible here in this 3D realm for the time being. All right, so all we need for that is the discipline, really, to wanting to live in truth. And that's then what pulls us or shows us the way into It's hard for me to say it in the right way because it's syntropic, right? So we're getting pulled into our future. So it shows us the way, shows us, but we already have it in us. Okay, of living a higher vibratory life. We need to bring in the action. We need to bring in the disciplines that allow us to do this. So wonderful months for that. Something to look forward to with all the chaos that is going on around it. You'll recognize the purpose of the chaos. You'll recognize the purpose of your pain, of your fear, of all these uncomfortable challenges. And you'll be free to make a choice. Higher or lower expression. That is from now on in your hands. Right? And the key through all of this new paradigm of understanding yourself and being true to yourself is the uncertainty paradox, is the everything is backward mantra, all right, that can get you through this in a more sophisticated metaphysical way, syntropy, that you're actually being pulled into your future. Right? And it's going to happen with or without you. If it has to happen without you, it's going to be very dramatic and with a lot of resistance and a lot of suffering. If you can jump on that train and let go and discipline your ego, along with silence your mind and silencing your emotions, not denying them, not burying them, not numbing them, no, silencing them. They're always going to be there, all right? But you just don't let them dominate you anymore. And you turn this into learning experiences, into maturity, over time through these disciplines. And that's then the way to your higher expression. Specific dates, guys, around the full moon, which is the 12th and the 13th. I mentioned this date already, and the new moon time, December 26th, 27th. Those are the most intense times. In December, the new moon really brings in this new energy here for 2020 with a bam. Okay, so there's something really big, collective, that is going to happen in that time. What will help you is the communing, communing, sharing with others. You don't have to carry all this burden of life on your own. And as always, the winter solstice is also, the 21st of December is always in one of these gateways. Okay, like the summer solstice, is when this collective overlay, all right, when this sort of becomes more permeable and you can see into the future more. You can see all this more clearly. So that's why typically those are times where here at transCODES was very, very active. This is it, guys. This completes my overview here, forecast for December 2019. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming. Share those videos, guys. Help other people to see the world in a different way so that they are not, just desperate and pessimistic, that they can find new hope. This is all about hope and faith. This comes in through higher vibrations. It's not about what I say or what you say, but if you can't find the words, then let somebody else speak for you. This is about the higher vibrations that people need to feel, and then it will trigger this sort of true self of in them to come forward. All right. Thank you, and have a wonderful December. See you soon. Bye bye.